All right, welcome back, everyone. Today we are going to play a game called How Operational Can I Get This 1970 Super Reverb with parts that I just have on hand. I have not ordered any parts for this. I'm just going through my part stash, but I do need to get this amp ready for some band practice and things like that I have going on. So, yeah, let's just dive right in. We're going to start by replacing these filter caps and resistors on the power board. This person did a decent enough job on this, but you can see how much these are wiggling. Yeah, and we are going to replace these with FNT caps. However, it's hard to tell with these how old they are. If anyone knows how to date FNT caps, please let me know in the comments. I was able to find some info saying that like this D9 down here may indicate that, but if we look at the newer caps that I have, they actually have a different style of format. Let's see if we can get that in focus. So I don't know if it has something to do with the two letters here, the RN, or if it's something with that series of numbers. I know this IEC number is for the type of cap, but I am going to assume these are pretty old because I've had this amp for a while. So, okay, yeah, here we go. Some of this might be fast forwarded, but we're going to start by replacing the caps, basically rebuilding this power board, and then moving to the other side of the amp. Okay, we're going to replace our 220K resistors with some 1 watt metal oxide. I normally will go up a watt on these where I can, but I don't seem to have any in stock, so 1 watt will be fine. That's what the spec is. And then these two resistors, the 1K and is this a 4700, 4.7K, we're probably going to have to use the Vishay style PR03s, which are not metal oxide, but still flame proof. Should be okay there. But I don't seem to have those values in stock at the moment. So going to go ahead and replace all the resistors, then get the new caps in place, and then we'll move over to the other side of the chassis. One other note on the capacitors, these two positions had 100 microfarads in there. The schematic calls for 70. We're going to be replacing them with 80 microfarads. Either is really fine in these scenarios. Yeah, shouldn't make any kind of audible difference between the two. Okay, here we go. And I'm also going to use some silicone RTV to secure these in place. Just a little dab on the bottom of the capacitor against the fiberboard. Okay, there's definitely some stuff we could clean up in here. We could redo the spaghetti wiring, these jumpers. But I'm going to save that for a later date. I just need to get this thing to a nice stable point, and since this is my own amp and it's for myself, very happy with just knowing I have nice secure filter caps that are new and new power resistors that are going to do the job. So I'm going to close this up. We're going to flip it over and see what's going on the other side of the chassis. Okay, so one other thing we're going to definitely want to do is change out our bias cap here. The resistor, and actually not the diode, but just the resistor, looks like it's not in too bad a shape and might even have been replaced at some point. But we're going to swap this out for sure. Okay, we can see the old guy is a 50 microfarad 70 volt. I have a FNT 100 microfarad 100 volt. Should be just fine in there. And always be careful when you're changing one of these bias caps. They are reverse polarity, so this ground connection is going to connect to the positive. Well, that's because our bias supply is creating a negative voltage. And if you want to know a little more about how bias supplies work, I just put a video up doing some LT spice analysis for the bias circuit in a high watt DR103 amp. Let's see, are we going to be able to fit all that in there? Go ahead and tack the other side in place first here. And there will be other things that we're going to do to this amp to get it 100%, but for now I kind of just need it up and running enough that it can survive some band practices. So we may not get too much further than this tonight, since this will get me through the next week or so. Let's see what else we can do here. Oh, this guy popped out. So again, we'll kind of just tack that in place and then come back and give it a better solder joint. It's always a little surprising to me when the bias cap has not been changed, when there's other work that's been done to the amp, like on this amp. Obviously, someone took the time to modify the tremolo circuit and bias circuit, but then didn't do the stuff I would consider to be the first pass, which is the bias circuit. There's no mojo or special things about these caps. This is just power supply stuff. So you just want it to be as stable and, you know, ideally as updated as possible with good quality components to ensure that your tubes are going to operate correctly. Let's see. I know we may try a tremolo mod here real quick. Just because I remember that the tremolo was not strong all the way through the throw of the knob. So I may actually, let's see if, we'll give it a try and see if it fixes it. But I may leave everything else for later on, just to see how this does. I do want to change the power cable. I want to change the resistors on the tube, the screen, and the grid resistors. I would like to just go ahead and change all the plate resistors in the amp as well, but I think I'm going to have to order parts for some of that. And this is going to already be at a point where things are nice and stable. But let's do a safe power up here real quick, make sure that there's no issues. I'm getting sound out of the amp. And then after I know that, I'll maybe try changing something out over here to see if that fixes our tremolo issue. Okay, stay tuned. Okay, we're going to power up the amp on the current limiter. I'm hooked up to an attenuator that's acting as a load box going to a speaker cabinet. Yeah, let's power this thing up, check some voltages real quick and see what we get. Always want to do things on the current limiter after changing any kind of caps in the power supply. Looks like we're probably good. The bulb came up right as inrush current came in to fill up the caps and then dim back down. So let's check some voltages here. We can also see if we get any sound. Definitely going to need to clean some pots. And how are we doing on the other channel? Okay. Check some plate voltages. These are going to be lower because we're on the current limiter. And I do tend to rest my hand on the chassis when I'm taking these measurements. I don't know if you ever see that, but if you do happen to get shocked, then the current will just go through your hand to the ground of the chassis instead of going across your chest. That should be like a last resort of how things should operate, but the one time I got shocked, that's what happened, and my hand did get a little funny feeling, but much better than it being a situation where things were much worse than that. Let's see if we can rest this here. So I'm just checking bias as well as plate currents on the power tubes, plates for both sides of the preamp tubes. We have signal going through the amp, so I think we should be good. Let's power down and then see what's going on with that tremolo. See if there's something we can do about that. Okay. Okay, so you can hear we have nice strong tremolo. Throughout the speed, however, it does still disappear at anything below around 8 on the intensity, which is what I intended to fix with this mod. I'll probably still leave this in place. This is a good way to get a stronger tremolo. We basically replace the cathode resistor and capacitor that's hiding back here with an LED to get a very set voltage for that cathode of the oscillator tube. I can't take credit for coming up with this or anything. This is something that Slucky on the forums and Merlin Blencow on his website, the Valve Wizard website, go into great detail about why this works really well. I probably will still leave this in place, but I am going to have to dive in a little bit deeper. It could still just be a bad tube or a, tube that's on the verge of failure. So I'll dive into that a little bit further. But again, this is going to get me through practice for this next week. I will dive back into this amp, take a closer look at some other things. But for now, this is probably going to do it. This is, with parts I had on hand in a short amount of time, can get this thing ready, nice and stable, reliable. I could go play a show with this right now and be confident that it's going to be working correctly. Let's see. So we will go further with this at some point. I'll probably come back in and replace the plate resistors, as well as the screen and grid resistors for the power tubes. Probably throw some new tubes in there before I do play a show with this. And I'm going to take out this switching pot for the actual intensity. I don't have any need for that. If there's anything else that you guys would like to see in this amp, though, or recommend that I do to a Super Reverb, I am going to reroute the grounds as well for the power cable, make that nice and safe. But yeah, just let me know. We can use this as a test bed for looking at other modifications or things that you would like to see on a Super Reverb or AB763 style circuit from Fender. All right, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.